Well, welcome to Tea Time Spiritual Conversations for, with, and about women. I'm your host, Twana Henderson, and I want to remind you to like this podcast and share it with your family and friends. Well, I am excited about today's guest. Our guest is Pastor Keisha Dixon. Pastor Dixon, affectionately known as Pastor KD, is the online campus pastor for First Baptist Church of Glenarden, located in Glenarden, Maryland. She is a preacher, a teacher of the Word of God, and an author. And in her role as the online campus pastor, she is responsible for utilizing digital tools to discover, meet, engage, and disciple and minister to people all over the world who desire to connect with the church. And currently, the online campus there has members on 6 continents. That is so amazing. Pastor Katie, welcome to Tea Time.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well,
Thanks for inviting me.
excited to have you with us, and I'm so excited to get into this conversation on today. Of course, 2020 was definitely a game changer for the church community. Talk to us about what an online campus pastor is and what you do.
Wow, that's a great question. And 2020 was definitely a game changer. As a matter of fact, 2020 is what prompted my role here at First Baptist Church of Glenarden. So, one of our responses to the COVID pandemic was to engage an online campus pastor and to begin building an online campus. So, that's how I got in this role. And so I'm very excited about that. And so, as an online campus pastor, I do a couple of things, really a few things. One of those things is, I try to engage our audience
Mhm.
and try to connect them with Christ and with the church. So, creating opportunities for people to come together in community to
Mhm.
share, to be discipled, and things like that. So that's one side of what I do. But
Mhm.
then the other side of it is we're all digital. I'm an online campus pastor. So there's a little techie side to what I do, utilizing some of the latest tools, some of the latest, keeping a track of the latest trends and technology to see how we can leverage those trends to minister to people. So I get to kind of play with my techie side and I get to minister to people and create community in my pastoral side. So a little of both.
Now, that's very interesting because it's very new. I mean, this is a very new area for a lot of us. And, a lot of churches are really trying to, kind of figure this thing out and just navigate through this. When you talk about, an online campus and members, how are members recruited? I mean, how do you get people to become a part of an online campus?
That's a great question. And so I'll give this disclaimer. We really don't go after members, if that makes sense. We believe that church membership, of course, is spirit led. So we don't necessarily promote, in terms of marketing strategies and things like that, our online campus, but we do during our broadcasts allow people or let people know that membership is available to them no matter where they are in the world. So we leverage our viewership, our followship, if you will, depending on what social media vehicle you're using, our subscribers, if you're talking YouTube. And so we use those platforms that we've already engaged people on to
Mhm.
let them know that if God is speaking to them, if the preaching and the teaching of Pastor John K. Jenkins Sr. is ministering to them and they feel led to connect with our church, then they can do that no matter where they are in the world. And they respond. So they're responding to the word of God through our senior pastor, and then they want to connect with us. And that's when they meet me.
Okay. Well, that is so amazing because, it's just a whole new world, so to speak. And, a lot of times, I mean, I can see someone, viewing a broadcast who lives, I know you guys are in Maryland, who may be in Seattle or somewhere. I don't know. Um, how do they, how does that work? If they're out of state, what does that look like? I mean, can they connect from out of state? And what does that look like if they or have a connection with a church where they are? I mean, how do you figure that out?
Wow, these are all really great questions, and I actually have two answers. I have our First Baptist Church of Glenarden answer, and then I also have some advice for other churches who may be thinking of engaging an online campus. So, how we do it here at First Baptist is, and I think this was the biggest pivot that we had to make,
Mhm,
was converting or transitioning many of our key offerings to a virtual format to accommodate our membership. One of the things that Pastor Jenkins was clear on from the beginning is that we only have one church membership. So there's no e membership or anything like that that's different from your membership here at the church if you were local.
mhm.
With that being said, the first charge that I had coming in the door and setting up this online campus was to make sure that our online community has the same opportunity and meets the same membership requirements as people who would be local. So that means making sure that our new members process is virtual and sustainable so that people, because that new member classes are required for membership,
Mhm,
we had to create a virtual baptism process because we're a Baptist church.
mhm.
Therefore, if you've never been, fully immersed after accepting Christ, then you have to be baptized in order to be a member. So we had to create virtual baptism opportunities.
Okay, so
Uh,
let me pause right there. Right. I mean, does that mean I go in my bathroom or my bathtub and kind of what does that look like?
it could look like that. It could absolutely look like that. And we started virtual baptisms in February. So we've been doing them. We did February, March, April, and then in about a week and a half, our May virtual baptisms are going to be held. And so it could absolutely look like that. We give people plenty of options. We created instructional videos to show people how the virtual baptism might look. We have an amazing productions department that built a set. You would think you were in a luxury home, but it was actually a set that was built so that we could film these demonstrations for people so that they would know how to conduct it. But in its basic sense, it could very well be a person in his or her bathtub. I think our sweetest moments have been the baptisms where parents get to participate in the baptism of their children, which they love because even on site, the father doesn't baptize his or her children.
Mhm,
That's done by church staff. So some of our families, we've had husbands to participate in the baptism of their wives.
mhm.
Amazing. So with pools, tubs. So it could be done many ways.
Well, and I don't want to be legalistic, but there may be somebody listening saying, well, my family member is not, an ordained person to be baptizing. How do you get around that? How do you explain that to people?
Okay, so here it is, and I've had these conversations with Pastor Jenkins, and so I can say it because I can say it with his permission. This is his stance as well. Um, Fundamentally, this is his response. In baptism, there is no power in the person who's doing the baptizing. There
Mhm,
is no power in the place where the baptism is happening. There's no power in the water. The power is in your confession of faith to Jesus Christ. And
mhm,
with that being said, there's another pivot.
mhm,
And he's been really transparent about that. Some of these things he had to pivot from thinking, the way that possibly he had thought before. And so his stance, and I love it, there's no power in that stuff. The
mhm.
power is in that profession of Jesus Christ. So the question we get, I put it in these terms: is this legit? Is this a legit baptism, or is this temporary and we have to go and do this again? And
Mhm,
the answer is it's legitimate if your confession of faith is legitimate.
mhm.
And so that's where the power is. And that's how we respond to that.
Okay, okay. I think that's a great answer, because I can see people asking that, and
They ask.
hey, am I qualified to do this? But now tell me about, you said that, online, uh, members or subscribers, or whatever we want to call them, you
Mhm.
have the same rights and privileges of as any member of the church. Um, suppose I want to get married. What does that look like? I mean, is do I have to come there? What does that look like if someone wants to get married?
That is a great question. And so what we have devised for our online campus members. So answer number one is a person who wants to get married at First Baptist or by a minister of First Baptist Church of Glenarden after they've completed the same requirements.
Mhm.
We have two classes that have to be completed and things like that. If they decide they want to get married, they can travel here if they desire to get married here as long as they've met our requirements and at least one of them, of course, is a member of the church. But we do for our online campus members, we have two other options that we've presented to them. So one of them we call, well, actually for weddings, there are three other options. We have what we call an in-person travel option. So you can fly us to you if you want one of our ministers to come and to do your wedding, and of course still completed all of the requirements, then you can fly a minister to you. Now that's at your expense, not ours. So that's one option. But then we have a couple of other options where we can participate virtually, either live, or we can at least send a video or a recorded message. We've done the research. There are actually some states in the country where we can preside over the wedding virtually and it's legal. Whereas in some other states, the person has to be there physically. And if that's the case, then we can participate virtually. So we've set up several options for people that include us participating virtually to whatever degree the law allows.
Wow. I tell you, times have really changed. So, talk to us about some of the successes of launching an online campus.
Wow, that's a great question, and thank you for asking. So I think some of our biggest success, of course, has been the people with whom we have connected. So
Mhm.
you mentioned earlier that we have online campus members
Mhm.
on 6 continents. The
Mhm.
only continent that we haven't gotten through to yet is Antarctica, but I know that there are people there. So but I think that's one of the biggest success. God's great commission is to go and make disciples, go to the nations, and for so long a lot of churches have thought that the goal was physical. And
Mhm.
then COVID showed us that you can't physically go right now,
Right.
but God's commission didn't change. So
Yeah.
I think the biggest success has been how we've been able to go virtually.
Mhm.
And we've been able to make connections on 6 out of 7 continents. To me, that's probably one of, if not the biggest success, is that we're still getting the gospel out to the entire world, and we didn't have to subject ourselves to travel bans and quarantines to do it. So I think that's been our biggest success. And then I think a couple of the other successes has been the reception of the online campus with our members here in Maryland. It
Mhm.
has re-energized or energized people. Everybody's excited.
Mhm.
Wow, what do you mean? We have members in South Africa and Australia. What do you mean? And just to see the excitement among those of us here in a virtual context where people have been so down and
Yeah.
and I don't like that we can't do, it's been a tough time, but to see the excitement, how can we help? The ministries are coming together devising plans as to how they can assist with the online campus, so that's been another success.
That is pretty amazing. Um, you know, it is different for people having that kind of online experience. Is it difficult creating a Sunday experience virtually?
I would say yes, but I can't because we have the most amazing worship arts department, music and worship department, our productions department, and so everybody comes together to create these experiences. Um, and so I think that has helped significantly. So
Mhm,
I'm not somewhere as the online campus pastor trying to figure all of this stuff out on my own.
mhm,
And I think that's and that's kind of significant for any church that's looking to launch an online ministry is it is a collaboration. Yes, my role is online campus pastor, but there's no way that I could do it all myself. So we have an amazing creative team. It's all hands on deck.
mm,
Everybody participates, and that makes it a little easier because we have some amazing creative folks and some amazing production folks, and some of the stuff they come up with, I'm in the meeting going, "What? We can do that?" I'm amazed, at some of the things that we're able to do. So it's not difficult at all because it's a team effort.
yeah. And let's be honest, the things that First Baptist Church of Glenarden can do, many churches cannot do. I mean, most churches don't have a production team and all these different things. And so realistically, the average church is what, 100 people, 125 people. And so, but there are churches that are reaching people and serving the Lord. What advice would you offer to churches desiring to launch an online campus on their level?
And I think you just hit one of the pieces of advice is you don't have to be First Baptist Church of Glen Arden to make an impact globally. And so I think the most important thing is to start where you are.
Mhm,
So if your church currently um, does a live stream on Sunday on Facebook Live, then start building community on Facebook Live. Start where you are with what you have. I think that's probably most important. It's really tricky for a church with limited resources to say we're going to do this.
mhm,
That sometimes that doesn't inspire people. Sometimes it demotivates them because they see the gap between, and so start where you are and build to where you're trying to go. I think that's most important. The Sunday morning experience is amazing, but build around that. You
mm,
know, if a church service is say 2 hours on a Sunday, there are 168 hours in a week.
mhm,
So, what can you do with the other 166?
mm,
That becomes really important as well. Once service is over, what other ways can you create community and connect with people outside of the Sunday moment? Because that's where discipleship happens. Discipleship doesn't happen on Sundays, it happens in those other 166. So consider how you might branch out and do new and creative things outside of the Sunday moment.
mhm.
That's a great way to get started. Where can we niche? What can our niche be outside of the Sunday morning?
Yeah, that's excellent advice. With regards to the online pastor, you have a very dynamic personality. What characteristics should a church look for in an online pastor?
Wow. So that's another good question. And I think the most important characteristic is flexibility.
Mhm,
The person must be agile and flexible, able to kind of shift back and forth between being, technically aware and technically gifted and also being able to connect with people. So I think flexibility becomes really important. Absolutely, a person who is a great communicator, a
mhm,
person who can easily, I don't want to say make friends, but that's the best word, that's the best phraseology I can come up with. A person who can make friends, it has to be natural. I don't have to pretend in this role. This
mhm,
is how God made me. And so I think a person who's comfortable with who he is or who she is, because and genuine, because that's what people connect with. Does
mhm,
the person have to be totally tech savvy? No, but they can't be technology averse either. So they can't be a person who, well, child, I just got, no, that's not going to work. You have to be you have to at least want to learn. I don't know everything about what's out there, but I like learning about it and figuring things out. And so those aspects do matter. But you can't be technology averse. Some people hear the term pastor and they think, oh, all I got to do is get on camera and preach to the people. No,
Mhm,
we have a senior pastor. His name is Pastor John K. Jenkins Sr.
mhm,
He's the pastor of the church. As
mhm,
an online campus pastor, my role is a little bit, it's a little more administrative.
mhm,
So they can't being able to preach good is not the characteristic for this role.
mhm.
It's being able to connect with people. Um,
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that because, our audience primarily is women because Tea Time is for and about women. And, there are so many ministry opportunities for women. And, and I'm sure there are listeners who are thinking, gosh, I never even thought about, that role but not, thinking that I needed to be, have all of this experience in ministry or what have you. But that I could really be developed to do something like this. And so I'm glad that you said that because there are so many ministry opportunities for people, and particularly for women, in various roles. And particularly now that we are in this new space and how things have really changed a lot. I want to quickly kind of turn to giving, because that's a huge part because you can't do ministry without money. I mean that's just the way it is. You can't feed people without money. People say, "Well, I just want to feed people." Well, it takes money to feed people.
that's right.
You can't do ministry without money. How has the pandemic caused or even forced the church to reimagine its offerings?
Wow, that's such a great question. So, some churches spend hundreds and thousands of dollars printing offering envelopes
Hmm.
that are now sitting somewhere in a corner someplace.
Yeah.
Um, and so, of course, electronic giving options have become king and queen during the pandemic. And so, whether we wanted to or not, we had to expand how we perceive giving. And now, with international implications, we've had, to go a step further to ensure, and there are giving platforms that have currency converters that will convert the currency for you. So, jumping out there and doing things we never thought we had to do before, it's really important. But your e giving options are definitely your best friend. And then if your church does not have text giving options, you absolutely have